everybody, I'm Michelle Roy of Dragonfly Wellness, and this is Wellness Wednesday. Today is the 6th part in a multi-part video series that we've been doing on the 8 limbs of yoga. So today we will cover the 6th, 7th, and 8th limb, because they kind of all go together. You'll see. So I mentioned this when a couple limbs ago when we were talking about pranayama, breathing practice, and how that would become the bridge to these more subtle limbs. And really the more important ones, right? I guess if we have to give it a little weight, because the whole point of this practice is to develop a meditation practice. And that meditation practice is what allows us to connect with the higher self, with a higher power, if you wish. It physically has a benefit, of course. It allows the brain to rest, enhances our concentration. Scientifically proven, we need less sleep when we have a regular meditation practice, because you are giving your brain that opportunity to be free of overstimulation, which we of course have plenty of in our world today. So the 6th limb is Dharana. Dharana is concentration. It's very close to the 7th limb, which is Dhyana. Dhyana is meditation. There is a subtle distinction between the two. Concentration is what we're working on when we, all the way back to asana, right? The physical practice, the breath, pranayama, the 4th limb. Those two things are the beginnings of what teach us to concentrate, right? And then we add the 5th limb that we had last week, pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal, withdrawing the senses. That's the beginning of this concentration practice, right? When our concentration becomes a single pointed, focused concentration, then we are meditating, right? But as long as we can kind of be interrupted, we have moments or periods of concentration, but they are still interrupted. That's when we're doing that practice, right? So concentration, as I said, Dharana. Dharana, concentration, we practice when we are doing our physical poses, right? So for instance, in alignment-based yoga, if I'm asking you to place your foot a certain way or your knee a certain way, those are the beginnings of teaching us to concentrate. Because for that moment, I'm really focused on the alignment of my leg. And I'm not thinking about my grocery list or what my teenager did last night or any of that stuff. For that moment, I'm focused on what's happening in my body. Same thing with the breath. When we get into breathing practice, often the eyes are closed. Pratyahara, withdrawing the senses, drawing in, focusing on our breath. Often our breathing practice will be linked, or it'll be performed with some kind of counting or mantra or some phrase, something that keeps the mind occupied and focused on the breathing, right? That's concentration. That's Dharana. When it becomes single focused and uninterrupted, Dhyana, meditation, is what's happening. So Swami Satchidananda has a beautiful image that he uses to describe these two limbs. Concentration or meditation is achieved. It's like we're pouring warm oil, right? It's a lovely Ayurvedic reference, right? We're pouring warm oil. And when that oil can flow in a continuous stream, that is meditation. And this is true. Like, I like to play with this imagery a little bit. Sometimes if you're applying, say, olive oil to a salad, we tend to kind of, we'll go to pour it, but we're trying to pour lightly. And so then maybe it pours for a bit, but then it drips and then it pours. If we can pour it at just the right tipping, just the right flow, and then we can get it to flow over the salad. There's your dhyana, there's your meditation. That single smooth flow, right? Concentration becomes meditation. And once we are able to meditate, that is when we achieve the 8th limb, Samadhi, bliss. Bliss is the ultimate experience of the practice. It's a peacefulness, it's a groundedness, it's a calm, it's a connection. It's a sense of well-being, right? And I'm going to do one more video about the limbs that will talk about the synergy of the limbs. I kind of alluded to this a couple videos ago about how the limbs, the way they move from kind of the physical world to this more esoteric experience of meditation, is similar to the energy centers in the body and how they start kind of in the gross physical world, the elemental world, and then we move out of that into more subtle energy centers. It's very similar. So I'm going to talk about that next week. But it's important to remember that the limbs kind of all happen at the same time. You don't have to wait until you have a meditation practice to experience bliss. How many times have you been in a yoga class where, guess what, all the things kind of apply? You're doing your yoga, you're doing your breathing, you're concentrating on that. You have a moment of peaceful, blissful experience. And it passes. And then we build it again. And that is also, there's a lesson in that too. We're not meant to be there all the time, right? That's why we have this practice. The practice is a returning. I often say that about meditation. It's a returning. It's a practice of returning. Because when you sit to meditate, while we're developing that single pointed focus, we're going to be distracted. Thoughts are going to come into the mind and pull us away. And when they do, we recognize, uh-oh, there I am, 5 thoughts away from my meditation. Come back to the breath. Come back to your mantra. We return and begin again. Experience the bliss. Oops, get distracted. Call ourselves back. We return again and return again. And it's this beautiful returning. That's what we have to embrace if we're going to work with these limbs that are not physical, that don't have something overt like a big, strong ujjayi breath for us to focus on. It's when things get quiet. That's when the inner voice gets loud and distracting. So can we continue this practice so that we can experience that bliss, and then it becomes this practice of returning, not judgment. It doesn't matter. We peacefully return. Peacefully return. It's the same practice that keeps you returning to your yoga mat, right? So, as I said, next week I'm going to put all of this together for you, but just know today, concentration, meditation, and bliss. Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Bliss. And it's all blissful. Recognize the next time you have that bliss. When you're in meditation and you see it, you lose it, right? Because you have this momentary awareness of, oh my gosh, I'm doing it, and then it's gone, right? But we come back again. So you keep returning as many times as you need to. There's no shame in that. Don't give up. Stay with it. And I'll see you again next week. Have a fantastic Wednesday, everybody. Namaste.